Hello and welcome to, I forget the name of our show. Hello and welcome to GNN, a weekly Fallout-themed podcast brought to you by Shoddycast, the makers of the Fallout Lore, The Storyteller web series. I'm your host, Charles Battersby, and with me is my co-host...
Hello, I'm Austin Horrigan, and I guess I can't deny it anymore. I am distantly related to Frank Horrigan. You guys got it out of me with your rigorous gotcha journalism, and I cop to it. But it's distant.
We knew it. All right, and this week we have a couple of special celebrity guests with us. Tommy and Ben, please introduce yourselves.
I'm Tommy Watson, one half of the Machinima story team for the Storyteller series, and I've been on since season 1, so I've been here for, it's almost been 2 years now, I guess. And to make the weekly series, we brought Ben on here, and he did the Boy and His Dog episode, and now we trade off every other episode for season 3.
I'm Ben Rody, and I'm the other half of the Storyteller series now, and like Tommy said, I kind of tagged along at the very end of season 2.
All right, so a lot of people have been asking us on Twitter to talk about mods for the upcoming Fallout 4 and the modding tools that are going to come out and the way that mods are being distributed from PC onto console. So let's start by talking a little bit about the PC modding tools for the previous games. The Fallout series has a in-game thing called the Garden of Eden Creation Kit. So when the developers of Fallout 3 decided to make a set of development tools for modding the game, they were a little cheeky and they called the tool that they released the GEC. So right after Fallout 3 came out, there was about a 6-week gap before the GEC arrived and people could start making stuff. And New Vegas had a similar version of the GEC at launch. And Skyrim has the Creation Kit, which was released about 3 months after it came out. And Skyrim has the unique feature that it's available right through Steam. So guys, what do we know about the Fallout 4 software development kit?
Mostly that it's probably going to be a heck of a ton better than the Fallout 3 New Vegas GEC. And if it's anything like the Skyrim one, which I'm really assuming it is, it's going to be pretty fantastic.
A lot more stable would be great.
Oh, God.
All right, so there's a video that Todd Howard recorded at E3 talking about the kit coming out sometime after launch.
He said like early 2016, so hopefully January 1st would be good.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be around that time because, I mean, from switching from Fallout 3 to Skyrim, the GEC and the Creation Kit, they're very different when you use them. I mean, they kind of look similar, but they're different in how they work. So, I mean, they kind of had to do a lot of coding differences with that. But I'm assuming since Skyrim and Fallout 4 aren't that far apart, it's not going to be too difficult to really translate it differently.
And sometime after that, because the creation kit or whatever they're going to be calling it, I would not be surprised if they just called it a GEC again. Is going to be coming out for the PC first, and then it's going to be sometime after that launching the console mods, the Wild West of console mods.
And now, what about creating a mod on PC and then bringing that over to your Xbox One? Or if someone else makes the mod, you'll be able to import it onto your Xbox One.
From what I had been reading, that is the model that they're saying they're going to follow. But the thing that I'm skeptical for, I'm actually skeptical that it's going to be just a total buggy nightmare transferring from computer to console. And they've even said that, I think it was Todd Howard, it may have been Hines who said it, that they were not interested in regulating it too much, which to me sounds a little scary. Like they don't know what's going to happen and they're just going to kind of wait and let everything. I mean, and maybe there is no other option. Maybe it's just kind of like, hey, it's going to explode anyway, no matter what we do. So we're just going to try it out Wild West style first and then see who survives.
Yeah, I think media piracy is liable to be a rampant issue that people will make a Fallout mod that does nothing but let you sit down on a couch in your Fallout house and stream media files from your PC and circumvent the Xbox Live marketplace.
Well, I think the whole concept behind the mods for Xbox One is kind of more being implemented with BethesdaNet kind of thing. I think that's how they're going to try and circumvent it. That there's going to be some like restrictions in how you make it. Like if they notice it's like a buggy mess, or if the coding looks like just nightmarish,
they're going to
like,
need some kind of like filtering system for quality and to ensure for bugs. That like someone has to do that, and that's going to be really difficult.
And for listeners that don't know about BethesdaNet, can you tell us a little bit about that?
BethesdaNet is essentially Bethesda's own little Nexus modding site or Steam workshop. So it allows like modders to upload their mods to Bethesda's site. So now we have like 3 sources of modding websites for main. So it's just kind of like a modding central that they're releasing.
So one of the features that's going to happen in Fallout 4 is that people are going to be able to disassemble things that they find and rebuild them. They'll be able to build houses and put items around the little town or village that they're building. So that's a lot like some of the simpler mods that we see on PC now in the older games. So how is that kind of in-game world constructing going to affect the way that mods are made?
Well, I'd kind of thought about that when I saw that at E3. I was kind of like, oh, wow. Now a lot of mods are going to be kind of changed in the way they do it. That you're not going to see like 30 house mods on the Nexus right off the bat. I think it's going to definitely change it, but I still think they're still going to be there. I mean, there are some things you can do in the GEC that you can't do from what I've seen with the building system that they have in Fallout 4 so far.
Yeah, a lot of the mods that are available on PC, it's just, well, you have a little shack in Good Springs now. Or just, we're going to put this one little building here or this one cool weapon here, and then you go to that place in the game and you get it, and that's all there is to the mod. And now with these new features for, building the world, you can just do that in the game without having to get a mod or development tools. Now, we're also going to no doubt see some story-based mods show up, but a new feature that Fallout 4 has is that the protagonist is voiced. So in the older games, if you made a story-based mod, you could just write whatever text you want the character to say, and the player just reads it. But now the protagonist is capable of speaking, but if you make a mod, the character isn't necessarily going to be able to say the things that you want them to say. So how is a voiced protagonist going to affect story-based mods?
Well, I definitely don't think your little joke about there being every syllable in the English language being recorded, I don't think that is the what is going to happen.
Oh, but wait, if I can just hammer that bit of irresponsible speculation about them recording every possible syllable the character can say, they did say that they've recorded a bunch of commonly used names so that, whatever name you give your character, they'll be able to say it, or Mr. Handy will be able to say it. So maybe there is a possibility that they've pocketed a bunch of commonly used lines like, yes, I'll get that. And as a modder, you'll be able to just use this big list of, important sounding questable lines that the character can say. But please discuss.
Well, I think most likely we'll see a mod pretty early on of just taking out the voice altogether. And then for those who want to play in first person, they can just read the subtitles, kind of like how it is now, sort of. Then that could work more for quest mods,
yeah.
But anyone who wants to play with the voice, obviously, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think for the whole voice thing with the whole quest mods you're talking about, I think it's definitely doable. But I think your dialogue options that you're going to say to the character are going to be dumbed down quite a lot, because of I think the 13,000 lines they said they had recorded. I think 2,000 of them are just hey. Ouch. Yeah. No. They're just they're kind of lines just like that. So I think there's going to be definitely some ways to be able to do some workarounds with the whole voice thing.
They could search the script for various words. They could cut things out and try to make weird Siri-esque piecemeal sentences. But at the same time, the player character is a Fallout main character, not a Mass Effect main character or a Dragon Age main character where there's tons of exposition. It just isn't there. He or she's probably not going to be giving some huge monologue at the end of the game that gives all the modders an opportunity to say, oh, I can piece together so many sentences.
All right, so these mods that we're mentioning, they're eventually going to go to console. air quotes around console, because so far Xbox One is the only one that we're getting the option to port the mods over for.
Yes. Well, when you think of, I think Xbox One, the way I think it's going to be, it's a little more open system because it's kind of more based on Windows, while Bethesda games have always kind of had troubles with the PlayStation. I mean, if you played Skyrim on like PS3, you couldn't play Dawn Guard because it would crash like all the time. So I mean, it's certainly, I think PS4 is going to be the more difficult and regulated one when it comes to mods.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Todd Howard said. They want to get it on Xbox first because that's a lot easier. They have a better relationship with them, and then a little bit more down the road they can get it on PS4, hopefully.
So I think with kind of breaking the ground with having actual developer supported console modding, there's gonna be chaos. Like, it's gonna break. Like, there's no way it's not gonna break, and break pretty bad. And I think that's just kind of the price that is paid when you want to be the first or one of the first to do something.
There needs to be like a regulating system. That's why I don't see there's going to be that many versatile mods going on for consoles, because it's not like I could see it being like modified stats or like a new house or just
Some UI
small
upgrades or something.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Or the storyteller as a companion.
Already trying to keep your load order in check on PC is kind of difficult. Trying to do it on a console is just going to be kind of a disaster with huge dynamic mods.
All right, now for players that don't necessarily play on PC or that don't use mods, can you tell a little bit about the load order? And you mentioned the 4 gigabyte version and the script extender, and just all the different things that those of us who do mod know about. But can you explain a little bit about just why it's so difficult to get your 160 PC mods running well on your on Fallout New Vegas?
Well, I guess, okay, so like your load order, it depends. Like it's called a load order because it loads it in that order, and certain things like need to be loaded before you load this. So like if you had Dead Muddy and you needed like a mod that uses everything in Dead Muddy, have that one be loaded first, because it wouldn't load it right, so it'd just be this jangled mess.
Yeah, that is and then of course you get into the problem if you have a whole bunch of dependencies on consoles which have hard cap performance limitations. There's going to be some optimization problems. Like, no way they're not going to happen.
All right, we're making this all sound very scary.
I don't think it's going to go well at first. I would be surprised if it goes. I think in the end, with a lot of resources and testing and bug fixing from Bethesda, that they can reach a good place, and I think I have confidence in that, but there's a lot of potential problems at launch.
All right, so Tommy and Ben, a lot of our viewers know your work on the Storyteller web series. Now it's been running for almost 2 years now, with we're coming up on 40-something episodes. So tell us a little bit about how you guys got this job. Tommy, I think you mentioned that you were brought on to do the second episode. So tell us how you got the job there.
Yeah, the second episode of season 1. But I was working on a personal project, machinima project for Fallout called Wasteland Travels on my own channel. And Josh from Shoddycast saw one of them, and he just messaged me on YouTube and said, "Hey, you want to work for me?" I was like, "All right, sure." That's simple as that.
Wow, that's an easy job interview there. All right, so Ben, how did you get the job?
It's not like as glorious as Tommy's. Mine was just kind of I was working on my own personal projects and looking for views, so I started sending out messages to other YouTubers like, "Oh, hey, come and check mine out." Nice. And safe to say, mine was a little more. My message to Tommy was a little more formal. It was like, "Oh, dear Tommy, I'm a big fan," and blah 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 blah. And we started talking, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you work for Shoddycast. So if you guys ever need any help, I'm certainly around." And so then so after a couple months, or after not that too long actually, Tommy kind of mentioned to Josh like, "Oh, hey, this guy he can do this, and he's definitely willing to work for us." And then come, I think it was like March or April, I get a message from Josh saying, "Oh yeah, we'll have you do this the Boy and His Dog episode," and lo and behold, I'm still here.
Yeah, so what actually happened was the Boy and His Dog episode that was 14 of season 2. So while he worked on that, I did the 3 Dog episode. So that gave me like a month to do 12 minutes of the machinima, which obviously takes a long time.
Yeah,
so that worked out very well.
All right, now, the show's been on the air for 3 seasons, and something that Tommy said to me once struck me, that you did season 1 and much of season 2 without actually using the get. That was all just done with the console commands. So can you tell the audience a little bit about how the console commands work, and just how much you can accomplish without actually having to mod the game?
Well, I used mods from like the Nexus, and if I needed to build a location mod, I would just use the real-time settler mod on the Nexus as well. And but yeah, everything for all of season 1 and season 2 up to episode 8, Gary, I didn't even open the GEC once. It was all console commands, and it's too technical to go into all of them, but there's a number of them you need to know that you use to manipulate the NPCs to do what you need them to do. And then so like for instance, animations. A lot of people think that we make our own animations or something, but really they're all in the vanilla game. There's like hundreds of them, and you type in play idle and then the animation name, and then it plays the animation on command.
Now, every week when we release a new episode, there's always a dozen people that comment on YouTube, "Dude, where'd you get that armor? Is that in the game?" And so, so for those of you listening, yes, every week in the credits of the show, show more on the YouTube link, you can see every mod that's used to make that episode. But now, Tommy, you were doing season 2, and actually at the end of season 1 is when we first revealed the storyteller. So tell us about where you found that suit of armor, why you chose it, and the secret backstory behind it.
Josh just said, "Hey, here's a cool armor mod on the Nexus. Why don't you use it?" I'm like, "Hey, this looks pretty awesome, and no one's gonna recognize it, most likely. Well, not a lot of people." So, kind of went with it. And now every time I see that armor, I just think storyteller.
But that mod author is just kind of like, why is everyone downloading this now?
I don't think he knows.
I don't think he knows either.
Yeah, I checked the page. It hasn't been updated for a long time.
In human years, how long does it take you to actually make 6 minutes of animation?
On average, probably like a week of solid work every day for at least like 3 or 4 hours, maybe. Man, probably more than that.
All right, so guys, even though it's a lot of hard work, what are your favorite scenes that you've done?
I guess the Vault Dwellers episode with Natalia doing all of her little sneaking around the vault and everything. That was pretty fun to do, kind of changing it up a little.
Ben already knows what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I hear it about it all the time.
The Survivalist episode from season 2, episode 5. That was my favorite episode just because that was such a good story. And if you ever went through into Honest Hearts and read the computer entries in the terminals, it was just written so well, and it was so awesome going back and being able to animate that. And it was like one of the episodes that really had a deep emotional impact. And I'm sure many of you probably know that sometimes the Fallout engine looks a little derpy with animations, and it just looks kind of silly. But I think I nailed it pretty well.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. We're going to run a quick commercial now, but we'll be back in a few minutes with Ben and Tommy and me and Austin. But first, here are some important words from the Nevada State Board of Tourism.
Tired of life in the new California Republic? Want to enjoy a weekend with no pesky laws or nosy government looking over your shoulder? Come to New Reno and experience the wasteland as it was meant to be experienced. Stock up on your favorite chems like Psycho, Buff Out, and that new Reno sensation, Jet. Enjoy a visit to one of our many brothels, or even become the star of your own adult holotape. No money? No problem. Our merchants accept pre-war magazines, lumps of ore, and use jet nozzles as payment. It's a new world with new rules, and New Reno is the biggest little town in the wasteland.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to GNN. I'm your host, Charles Battersby. With me is Austin Horrigan and our special guest, Ben Rohde and Tommy Watson. So now it's time for a weekly segment that we call Artsy Smartsy Stuff, where we discuss the literary and film influences of the Fallout series. This week, we're going to begin a trilogy of Charlton Heston-themed movies. Back in the 70s, Charlton Heston did 3 different sci-fi post-apocalyptic dystopian movies. One was Planet of the Apes, another was The Omega Man, and this week we're going to talk about Soylent Green, as well as the novel that inspired it, Harry Harrison's Make Room, Make Room.
So why don't you give a summary that you think is safe and not too spoilery, or if you feel comfortable spoiling a movie that was made in the 1970s, and I'm also for that.
All right, yeah, a 40-year-old spoiler alert. Soylent Green deals with cannibalism. So Fallout is riddled with cannibalism references, and some of them are very deliberate Soylent Green references, especially Old World Blues and New Vegas. But Soylent Green and the book, Make Room, Make Room, both deal with overpopulated worlds. Now, the book, Make Room, Make Room, doesn't actually deal with cannibalism specifically, but Soylent Green has a huge plot twist right at the end, where we learn that cannibalism is the government's solution to overpopulation and not enough food.
And it raises, the movie's a little ham-fisted about it, because Charlton Heston gets a little upset at learning that information.
Tell the people!
And I guess it's a little mirrored in just slightly in Fallout New Vegas when you're in the Ultralux.
Yes, I think the Ultralux has a direct quote from the movie.
When you're given the option to feed people humans against their will, and I think that's kind of the only real moral qualm that I kind of have with the movie, because I think, you kind of redefine your morals when you enter a new social context, and which is a concept that Fallout is particularly familiar with. I think the big struggle in Soylent Green that I have with it is the lack of consent that people have to both A, give their bodies to be Soylent Green, and B, people knowing what they're eating.
So just to make sure that we're on the same level here, you're saying that cannibalism's okay so long as the food and the consumer are both willing.
I mean, as long as you make sure that it's not disease, you need some sort of regulatory body. I think the Calvin and Hobbes approach, I think it should be fine. It should at least not be punished as badly as murder, since it's less wasteful.
Man, we're gonna get some angry Twitters this week. All right, so now the novel Make Room, Make Room, it doesn't actually deal with any of that. The Soylent in the novel is a reference to fake meat being made with soybeans and lentil, which is something that's actually done in the real world with vegetarian food. So every time I go to a vegetarian restaurant and I order the veggie burger and they brag that, oh yeah, it's high protein with soybeans and lentil, I'm always a little suspicious. So Make Room, Make Room, it actually focuses more on overpopulation. That in this book, it's the nightmarish world of 1999, and global population is at 7 billion, which was actually pretty accurate, even though the novel was written in the late 60s. It was a little high for 1999, but it actually did hit 7 billion just a few years ago. And it also talks about the overpopulated America with 344 million people, which is actually pretty accurate as well. And now, even though the previous Fallout games dealt with Soylent Green and the cannibalism, I think Fallout 4 is going to be focused a little bit on the dystopian world as well, where parts of the Institute and parts of the Commonwealth will be these technologically advanced places, and overpopulation is liable to play a key role in the storyline, or at least have a subplot of some point where we have a wonderful world when there's a very regulated population, but if too many people are here, it turns into the outside wasteland.
I'd actually thought about that too, because I noticed in the gameplay trailers that they've shown and just the stuff we've seen, it seems like some spots are just just jam-packed full of people, while other parts it's kind of desolate with super mutants roaming it, from what I've seen. So I think that will kind of play a part in the next game.
But Soylent Green is a great movie to watch, even if you know the spoiler in advance. And Make Room is a terrific bit of speculative fiction about a world, a dystopia that actually bears a very strong resemblance to the real world today. And if you're interested in other works that have addressed overpopulation in a science fiction setting, you might also want to take a look at Stand on Zanzibar, which is focused very heavily on the overpopulation aspect. And next week on Artsy Smartsy Stuff, we will be discussing the Omega Man, as well as the novel that inspired it, and some of the other films that have been inspired by it as well. All right, so let's jump on to viewer questions. We got a lot of activity on Twitter this week. So, at Brett Ozzy wants to know specifically from Tommy and Ben, will you ever release any of the locations/mods that you created in the making of the lore series?
I'd hate to break it to you, but probably not.
They're either too weirdly made and you wouldn't recognize it, or they're just catastrophes.
They're just usually stuck in like vanilla areas. So if you're just walking by the gun runners, you might see, you know, the VATS in Fallout 1 or something. But
Oh, that's where those are?
No, well, no, they're not. But that was
More
just,
you know.
that was just theoretical. Actually, the VATS are in the Repcon basement. I moved all the rockets and Jason Bright, and I just put it down there.
You see, now I want you to do this. I want you to put your save file up and let us run around and play.
Yeah, that's the thing, is not all of them are made in the GEC. I built a lot of them with the real-time settler mod, so you would have to get my save file. There's not even an ESP, so it's kind of awkward. They look really cool in the video, but that's just because of the way we frame them and film them. But like if you just went in to play it yourself, it would be very out of place and kind of awkward.
Michael Martin, Mike_Mart 98, writes, do you think there will be full sets of armor like the Chinese stealth armor in Fallout 4?
Probably.
Yeah.
Because we've heard about the layered armor.
Yeah, I'm imagining there'll probably be some underlayers for sure. Like the Vault 101. The Vault 111 suit seems to be something similar to that. So, yeah. As far as costumes, I don't know about that.
I think they're going to do it how, like, there's going to be base layers and then layers that go on top of those. But then there's going to also be a few, like, actual sets of armor, like, different from the power armor.
Because I just imagine if you had unlimited amounts of pieces, that it would become a clipping nightmare. Like everything would just be.
That's what I've been thinking about
better.
too. I'm kind of like, I wonder how much like of this is gonna clip so badly.
And for people that don't know what clipping is, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, that's if you ever notice when you're playing a game with 3D modeling and two models meet, and usually you see this in any game where you're wearing armor. It's very common in fantasy games. The models will just move through each other. That's clipping. That is, they're clipping through.
The Optimist at Tomorrowland Man writes, narrative-wise, do you think Fallout 4 will have a serious and more emotional context from speech and plot seen so far?
Yes. With the speech, with the voice protagonist, I think it's gonna be able to convey some more emotion.
I think the answer is definitely yeah, especially since you're going to be presumably losing your child and spouse like right in the beginning.
Yes, one thing about post-apocalyptic fiction, even in the Fallout games, is that we all think, yeah, I'd be the badass survivor that runs around, I'm the wild man with nothing left to lose, but you don't get to be Mad Max unless you have lost everything. So in that context, yeah, it's definitely gonna be more emotional just because they are giving you this prologue where it's like, look at the baby and look at the adoring spouse, and they've said, the dog's gonna be immortal, so that probably means there'll be a story-based moment where those bastards kill your dog. And so it's almost definitely going to be more emotional and serious just because you're going to relate to this character's real world before the apocalypse hits. And our last viewer question is from Manpan the Medic. Out of all the followers in Fallout 3, which would you like to see again in Fallout 4, even if only an NPC? All right, so I called dibs on Butch before this podcast just because I want to see Butch have a funnel cake stand somewhere in Boston with the slogan, "Funnel Cakes Rule!"
I want to see Fox. I want to see Fox with a horde of Robin Hood-esque super mutants that are all obviously much dumber than him but are willing to follow him, and goes around like being kind of a chaotic good brigand and robbing from jerk faces out in the wasteland and distributing bottle caps to those who do not have them in the disenfranchised.
Jericho. He was the best. He feared nothing, and he had the best voice actor in Fallout 3. But he was just like a retired raider who decided to live in Megaton and fend off other raiders. And you can hire him for I think 1,000 caps. It might have been a speech option to undo that, but he was pretty awesome.
And I guess mine would have to be Sharon from Underworld. Sharon's the no-nonsense ghoul who he pretty much doesn't have a personality, who just kind of just looks at you and shoots you in the face. You get him by doing a job for Azrakal, or whatever his name is, in Underworld, and you get his contract, and then Sharon just kind of is like, oh, hold on a minute, and just goes to his old contract guy and just blows the shit off him.
I remember that. That was awesome.
That's a pretty amazing moment if you're not expecting it.
All right, now this goes directly into my irresponsible speculation section. So those of you who don't watch the show regularly, we always close with a segment that we call irresponsible speculations, where we just wildly rumor monger about things that almost definitely will not happen, with no regard whatsoever for the real people that are making this game and how our irresponsible behavior is actually affecting their lives and the Maryland state economy down in Bethesda. So for my irresponsible speculation, I'm going to say Harold has to come back. And now, for those, the last time we saw Harold, he was a tree rooted in a spot, so I'm going to go with this. Harold gives off little seeds that spread around, and these little seeds are going to land in the brains of the Gary clones. And all the Gary clones are going to grow little trees out the sides of their heads. And at least one of those Gary clones with Harold's tree in him, we'll call him Gerald, is going to wander up to Boston. And that's how they're going to get Harold into Fallout 4. And that the wasteland will just be full of these Gary clones with bob trees growing out the sides of their head. And in every upcoming Fallout game, there will be an easy excuse to get Harold into it.
I think that one is definitely going to happen. There's no way that it really couldn't happen. It seems too logical for them to avoid doing it. Mine is that I think there's going to be a feature. No, I know there's going to be a feature in Fallout 4 where if you have a luck score that is too low, 1 out of every 10 or so stealth boys will malfunction, and instead of making you go nearly invisible, they will set off like a foghorn type noise that will attract all enemies to you, and that's what you get for treating luck as a dump stack.
That is not only plausible, that's something that I think it's got to be just built right into the code of all the previous games, and for some crazy reason they decided to remove it. I can't imagine why, because that makes a great deal of sense.
Well, obviously they didn't put out too many Skyrim DLCs, so I think we'll see a Skyrim 2 DLC for Fallout 4 and the Dragonborn as a companion.
I'm positive that Todd Howard was just engaging in elaborate subterfuge to hide the fact that that's going to be their day one launch day DLC.
Well, mine is you blow up Megaton, and the explosion was so powerful it launched Moria Brown all the way into the Commonwealth. And you have to deal with her all over again.
Oh god.
Oh, hi there.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, she'll just be a bonus companion who just yells the most useless shit ever out at you.
And no matter how big your party gets, she's always going to be there. She's immortal and can't be dismissed. All right. Thank you for joining us for this week's GNN. I'm Charles Battersby. You can always stalk me online at charlesbattersby.com or on Twitter at Charles Battersby with no Y on the end. Austin, where can you be cyberstalked?
People can find me on Twitter at ARHorrigan, or they can also tweet at ShoddyCast, which I also manage the tweets for that, so I will get back to you at any time. Also, the ShoddyCast Facebook page.
And Tommy, where can you be cyberstalked?
I don't have any Facebook or Twitter pages, but you can look up Blah45 on YouTube. That's 3 A's, H45, and there you can find my personal machinima work. And I gotta warn you, some of the earlier stuff is when I first started, and it's pretty terrible.
And Ben, where can you be cyberstalked?
I do have Facebook and Twitter, but those are private. You can find me on my YouTube page. That is Directinator Studios. That's just direct and then inator. That's where you can find my personal work and what I'm doing nowadays, etc. for Fallout stuff.
Or you can go to the Shoddy Cast About Us page, and our links are all there.
All right, and don't forget there's a new episode of The Storyteller every Friday, right up until the launch of Fallout 4, and you can catch us here on GNN every week as well. All right, this has been GNN. Join us here every week, and don't forget, join us every weekday morning for Mr. Handy's Robot Kitchen, and join us after school every weekday for the adventures of Captain Cosmos and Jangles the Moon Monkey.